Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Tuned and Strong podcast. I am Dr. Jen Cavas, and of course, as always, have Angela McCuiston of Music Strong Fitness. On our last podcast, we were talking with Dr. Rusty Holmes. The doctor is important.
It is important. It's highly important, actually.
Yes. And out of that conversation, after we stopped recording, kind of developed this concept of the imposter syndrome. And Angela, you had a book about this too.
Yes, I do.
It's been that kind of week. If you're watching, been that kind of week.
You know, I lost my bookmarks. Darn.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's Imposter Syndrome book. But we were talking about how imposter syndrome, as performers, as musicians, as business owners, instructors, coaches, this imposter syndrome kind of sneaks up on us all the time. And we were talking about how do we handle that in terms of just mental fitness, kind of like we were talking about with Rusty. How do we talk about that with our students? How do we handle it in our daily lives as performers, instructors, and coaches? So, we're going to unpack that a little bit today. I think let's start from a coaching perspective, because that's probably going to be the more obvious one.
Could be, but you know what the first thing I thought was when what Rusty said about we were trying to come up with a graphic for that episode. Mm-hmm. And we're like, well, he said, well, should I put Dr. Rusty Holmes? We're like, yes, you earned it. Why should you not put it? Mm-hmm. And how many of you just went, oh, I've had that same thought. The doctor sounded pretentious. Dr. Jen Cavas, ladies and gentlemen, I mean,
Yeah, and it's actually a little bit difficult for me mentally to introduce myself on the podcast this way every time. Because a lot of what we talk about is fitness, and my doctorate is in music.
So
doesn't matter that, yes, my treatise topic was on the cross application of these things. Yes, I have these certifications. No, we're talking about fitness, so I don't know if I want to call myself doctor.
Oh, I get it. Mm-hmm. And does that doctor make you sound less approachable, or does it make you sound like you have more credentials? Like, I don't have a doctorate. I tried out for I think I started the audition process, the application process twice. Actually, I did twice for my doctorate, and both times were utter disasters. It was because it wasn't right. I didn't need it. Yeah. It wasn't going to benefit me, so my heart wasn't in it. And does having a doctorate mean that you are a better performer? Let's not say that. Does having a doctorate mean you're more or less of a person? No, it doesn't. And depending on how you use your education determines whether you need it, which is something in the music industry. This drives me insane. I have a master's degree in performance. Mm-hmm. I am overqualified for all kinds of crap. But in the music world, I'm underqualified for the only jobs I'm allowed to have, which is like teaching. I can either hope, and that's the word that's used, hope to get a performance thing. I hope that I can join an orchestra. Mm-hmm. Or if I don't have a doctorate, I will not even be looked at for a college teaching profession. Shout out to Trevecca University, who added me as adjunct to the master's degree. I'm like, what's up with that? See, because look, it doesn't necessarily mean you have more knowledge. I know lots of doctors. I'm not talking about you. I know lots of people with doctorates don't know jack.
I agree.
Right?
Mm-hmm. I agree. There's a lot of, and not to talk those people down at all.
Not at all.
But there are, I talk about, we kind of branch off into our own things. So there were three of us when I graduated with my doctorate. There were three of us, all women, all graduating with our doctorate at the same time. One started a year before me, one started a year after me. Doesn't matter. All three of us are doctors. All three of us from FSU. All three with the same major professor. and our expertise is in different areas.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not, in a lot of cases, you're going to be competing for the same jobs, but the three of us, if it's an absolute right fit, we are not competition for each other because we're not the same type of expert. And I'll see the same thing too, where it's like, oh, well, even the community colleges generally don't consider you for a teaching position if you don't have a doctorate. That's partly because there's so much competition, they can ask for that.
That's true.
But they'll require that, and I'll go, this person's expertise is in performing orchestral excerpts.
Mm-hmm.
This person is a pedagogue. This person is, primary education type instructor. This person is secondary or higher education, and you'll find people who specialize like that too. That's like this person, and I've known a couple that it took me a while to figure out that they were a bad fit in their college teaching job because they were trying to teach students who were too high of a level. But when they went back and started doing either, I don't want to call it remedial work because that's insulting. It's not. It's addressing foundational issues in playing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nobody could touch them. To this day, I'm pretty decent at some of that. I could not touch that person. No way. Mm-hmm. If I had a student with that kind of problem, I'd be like, you're going over here.
Right.
That's the
Right.
person, But we get into that situation where it's like, great, so we've got these certifications and this level of study, but because either people won't consider us, right, or we think they won't consider us, or we're just so used to living with ourselves as just a person, like, yeah. I know a lot of students think of me as like, oh, it's Dr. Cabas, and I've had a couple who thought I had my life together, and I'm like, oh.
We all think our professors and our teachers have their lives together.
Oh yeah, and none of us do. If you have an honest instructor, they do not have their life together. No. Because it's a constant state of flux. But
let me adult. I can't adult.
Where did that come from? We're working on it.
Yeah.
But
we're all just
for whatever reason, any one of those, any combination of them, we kind of get into this point of like, well, I don't really deserve to be here because, I'm not qualified. I don't have the paperwork. I don't have the experience, or like I've taken gigs as a musician. That's like, I'm going, well, I'm not really the best orchestral player in the whole wide world. And I'm not. I'm decent, but I'm not the best in the whole wide world, right? And so I'll get to an orchestra and I'll be like, man, I hope I don't embarrass myself. Like, I'm probably going to be one of the weaker players there, because it's a professional orchestra. And then I get there and I'm like, oh.
I'm not going to lie. I've had that same kind of thought every once in a while. Like if there's one area I'm pretty solid in my, what's the word? Like, I just feel like I know my worth. And I don't struggle with knowing how good I am and being able to say, I'm good at this. And yes, you need to hire me because I know I'm good. It's my plan. Yeah. I'm going to put a little caveat on that right now because I've got a dumpster fire of an instrument and it's seriously like trying to drive a minivan in the Daytona 500. It does not work. It's just a temporary thing, and I'm so glad it happened like mostly during COVID, so it doesn't matter because I'm not playing, and I'm going to be getting a quality instrument here pretty soon. Thank you, Army, finally. But and I mean that really did a number on my self-esteem a little bit because it's like having your voice taken from you. When I had to give that flute back to the National Guard. Like I did my graduate degree recital on this. I won all my orchestral positions on this. This is what's in all my recordings. This is done. I've done studio work on this. This is my sound. This is my voice. This is me is what it felt like. And then I had to give it back because it wasn't mine, but I couldn't stay in that situation any longer. I'm like, all right, it will work out. And it was hard. And it like, I physically have not played that instrument, like though the one I have right now very much. Because of that. But at the same time, now I'm finally getting back into it. I've made peace and I just know like, okay, I've taken enough time away from the instrument that it's not my identity anymore. I know who I am. And it's okay to say, I'm good. I'm really
Yeah.
good. And I don't
Yeah.
have to have this level of education
Right.
to say that I am good and I am worth this position. But so like when I'm in the orchestra, dude, I own
Yeah.
it. That is my position.
Yeah.
I've been there since the beginning. Like I play piccolo and I play blah, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
But the girl who won first chair, not only do I not want her spot, but she has a doctorate. And I'm like, more power to you. But then sometimes, this is a tangent, but sometimes I'm like, should you really get paid more than me? They literally give you one part. They give me all of the extra parts, and I have to learn all of them, whether it's second, third, fourth flute, alto, piccolo. Why are you paid more than me? You know, that's another thing, but it makes me wonder, right? Like, why is that a hierarchy that's still around? Anyway, so in that arena, I'm okay. I've always kind of been really amazed that I feel okay with it. No, I'm really good. Yeah, you should definitely hire me. I'm like super solid, confident, and it's not an ego thing. It's like, I just know.
You just know.
I can do this, right?
And it's not like a bragging thing, which so many people are afraid of. It's like,
no.
When you know you've got something, you know you've got it, right?
Right. I mean, like, it's just like, it's like an innate talent that I was able to foster through like childhood. It's one of those, I'm going to admit, I was one of those lucky kids that I knew I wanted to play flute. And the minute I did, it's like, that's my deal. That's, you know, I was just one of those. Sorry. But when it comes to business, and then I had a big argument with myself. Like, am I selling out because I'm not using my performance degrees the way, quote, I should be?
Mm-hmm.
Which, what does that even mean? And, you know, I've said this story a million times, but I got my bachelor's degree in performance. I took a year off because I didn't go to there. I didn't get it. I got into IU, but I knew I'd be 40 grand in debt when I graduated. I went as a performance major. That's really stupid. I'm not doing that. So I took a year off and I went to another graduate school and I didn't like it. And then I finally got into FSU. And so it was like a longer process, but I knew I wanted a master's degree because I wasn't at my full potential. And I knew I didn't know, quote, all I needed to know. And it wasn't that I needed to know everything or even what, like I didn't have a career goal. I just knew I wasn't at my potential. And so when I graduated and I was like, fitness, dude, I love fitness. I was newly married. I had no friends, no job, no nothing. And my husband's like, just be at home. I went, okay, I need a break, you know? So I did. It was awful. But, you know, I kind of launched myself into fitness to like, what does this realm look like? And ever since day one, I felt behind the 8 ball. I felt like an imposter. And even though I know more than a lot of people on this subject, I still feel like, especially when I get into business situations and they're using terminology, I have no idea what does evergreen mean? What is your avatar? Can you just talk like normal people, you know? But then it's like, okay, do you get people results?
Yeah.
Do you keep your promises? Do you tell people what you're going to do and then you do that? And then do you have clients who have stuck with you for years? They don't do that because they like you. They do that because you help them, but it still doesn't stick, right? The only reason I got my master's is because I knew I needed more information. And then how I use that is up to me. It's not up to anybody else's standard.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that is such a big part of the mental fitness thing. That's like being able to process something like that. You know,
well, I felt I was selling out for a long time.
Oh yeah, a lot of people do.
Felt I was just trading time for money in something that wasn't my degree and I wasn't whatever. And then I went, no. And then you have to have that honest conversation with yourself. Like, do you like this? Do you honestly love this? Why are you doing it if not? And I had several like week-long solo vacations where my point was, let me get away from everything around me and figure out, like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Am I really an imposter? And I went, no, I'm not.
Yeah. Yep.
You don't have to be the best.
Right. Right. And there's so many different things in this field, like in both music and in fitness, that we can offer, you know? And so it's the same way you're talking about, oh, all these people throw out all these fancy terms and you're like, ah! And I feel like it's the same for a lot of people in music who are so hardcore musician that when you get in touch with a normal person who just wants to know more, communications break down.
Yeah.
And it's part of why I know in our first couple podcasts, you know, I think you made a comment on my terminology or lack thereof.
Maybe.
And that's part of it. I'm not all the time in music, but I like to know my audience in music. With my students, I gradually introduce them to terms. I don't expect them to know it right off the bat. But I'm like, you're going into this area, you need to know what people are going to sound like, and what we're talking about. And at some level, when you understand the terminology, you know, it gives you a different level of being able to communicate it with other people who know the terminology. Mm-hmm. But a lot of that, like, I'm not going to talk to the average person who's not in music that same way about music, you know? And it's not that I'm talking down to them. It's that I don't think it's necessary to act like I'm above them. You know, like you got to meet people where they are and not in a condescending way.
Yeah.
Like that's how you get them. Anyway, that's a total tangent. I don't remember how I got there. But it's hard. Oh, I remember
this conversation.
It's hard when that's the kind of approach you take. And that's, you know, especially when you're just getting started, it's like, well, I don't have all the terms, but I understand the concepts. I understand.
I feel like that in entrepreneurialism. So these business people, they're like, well, have you raised capital? Do you have like capital? You mean money? You could say money. Money makes sense to me. Capital, funding.
Yep.
Raising. Does that mean fundraising? Does that mean I have to ask? Does that mean I got a loan? What do you mean? I don't understand. Like, it's so confusing. Just use normal people terms. Don't use jargon.
Right. And not knowing those terms doesn't make you any less good at handling your finances, does it? You know, like maybe it does. I don't know.
No. If you're bad at handling your finances, it doesn't matter what jargon you use.
You know, like
but it's true. It's true, right? And so when you feel like you are, and so that's, I'm going to show this book again. So this is the whole reason I brought up this specific book. And this is called Overcoming the Imposter by Chris Kelso. Silence your inner critic and lead with confidence. This book is basically, and we're not doing another review, but just go check it out, because this book, it's a super easy read, and you'll feel like he's like in your head talking to you like, oh my gosh, yes, that's me. That's the voice that says, I don't know what I'm doing. They're going to find me out. And they're going to like kick me. They, quote, are going to kick me out because they realize I don't know what I'm doing. None of us know what we're doing. We're figuring it out as well, right? So, but this book is meant for, it was basically, there's a ton of, as he mentions, there's a lot of books out there about overcoming the imposter syndrome, especially geared towards women. But this one is geared towards entrepreneurs and includes men, because men feel the same as women do on these things. And entrepreneurs really kind of get, as he talks about that, like basically they get shoved to the side, like, oh, you already know what you're talking. You lead with passion. You know what you do, whatever. And it's like, no, we just know we don't want to work for anybody else. And we love to sing. We don't know how to, like I've been telling people for 10 years, I own a business called Music Song. What does that mean? Do I have a DBA? Do I need a DBA? What's an LLC? Do I need an LLC? I made up a name and paid someone to make a logo. And then I wrote it up and I filed for copyright. Does that make me that I own a bit? At what point do I quote own? So I just started saying it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
When do they tell you you are actually owning, when you have a brick and mortar, when you have a loan, when you have a business bank account? I'm like, I don't know.
But what it comes down to, and I think this will kind of transition nicely into what I think we should probably talk about next. What it comes down to is you own a business when you make the decision that you own a business.
Yes.
And fun fact, all this self-employed stuff, all of the like tune and tone performance, it's not an LLC. It's not. I don't need one. Fun fact. Basically, I'm self-employed, and there's paperwork saying that I can legally accept checks made to tuned and tone performance. That's it. It's just me. It's another name for me. Like,
Yeah.
But you own the business, and if you're a private teacher, if you're a coach, if you're like anything that you do for yourself, gig workers, most of us are gig workers on some level or other. You own a business when you say you own a business. Maybe that's just you owning you. Maybe you're like, before I decided to become Tuned and Tone Performance, I was Jen Cabas, clarinetist, saxophonist, doubler. Like, what's the job? Great. Like, I'm the business, I'm the performer. So we all do that to some degree. But maybe we can unpack a little bit of just things we've found. So obviously you've got that guy's book, and I'm sure there are tons of resources online for other tactics that we may not mention, but maybe we can unpack how you and I kind of overcome a little bit of that, or things we found to be helpful.
One thing is, don't wait for someone to give you permission. At some point, like I was making the joke, like, who let me adult? I can't adult. Like, and we see that meme. And how many times, like when put it this way, when did you first feel like an adult? Was it when you bought and paid for and started making payments, or on your first car, or paid for something in full, and you're like, with my own money that I saved, or I bought my first house? I'll tell you when I felt like an adult. When I pulled into this first house, into my garage, I'm like, I'm parking my car in my house, and I am changing the air filters. Ha! I am an adult. Like, I'm changing the light bulbs. Like, it's like I'm taking care of stuff. I am mowing my own yard, like stuff like that. But at what point is it that you stop asking other people for permission to just own your own situation? And you know Ava Omsler at Florida State, the outgoing right? She's amazing. Wonderful. So we were, I don't remember when this was. I was talking to her at some point, and I'd called her Professor Omsler all through my master's degree. And at some point, like, apparently when you graduate with your master's, now you are automatically colleagues, and you're just supposed to call them by your first name. And it's like, or by their first name. And it's a weird thing to get over, right? Yeah. Because they're no longer above you. Now they're colleagues, right? And she looked at me one day and she goes, Angela, when do you stop calling me Professor Omsler and you start calling me Ava? I went, I guess now. She called me out on it. She's really good at that.
Yeah. I really appreciate that about her, because it's something that for a lot of Americans is, it, but nobody forces you to do it. And we kind of need that much in the same way, you look at, so we are in the midst, in my opinion, this is maybe not the most popular opinion, but this is what I see. We are in the midst of an era where rite of passagehood in general into adulthood has been removed from society for most people. And we're seeing, as a result, a little bit to a lot of it, depending on the person, of kind of mental and emotional delayed maturity. Like, there's still people I know who are living on their own, been living on their own for years, pay their own bills. Some of them are married, some of them have kids, and they refer to themselves as girl instead of woman.
Okay, right, fair enough.
And same thing, so that's another one of those where it's like, I still have that little mental block of like, I studied with Debbie Bish for my doctorate, and I'm like, I need to be able to call her Debbie, but I'm so uncomfortable with it. It's like cringe in my soul, because I spent so many years calling her Dr. Bish. And just stuff like that. But for me, those two, so my kind of like, oh, I am an adult, it was a process. I didn't have a one clear aha moment. It was a process and a development, stage-based development for me. Words are hard. Anyway, so it was like I was 18 or 19 and living in an apartment next to college I went to. And I'm sitting here going, it occurred to me one day, I'm legally an adult, but I think of myself as a girl. When does that transition happen? Because I'm legally a woman now. And it took a couple years of just mentally saying, and I had to start small. I had to be like, I'm a young woman or I'm a young lady, but just kind of mentally programming myself that way, because I wanted that transition. Like I want to be more self-sufficient. I want to feel like I am more capable. I had to practice that. I am still practicing mentally calling my former faculty members by their first name. I'll do that mentally. Just
on the reverse of that, like I've had when I go to teach at different places, because the band directors or the music professor there are my colleagues.
Yeah.
Too many times they will address the students, say, "Oh, this is Angela." I'm like, "Hi, I'm Ms. McCuiston."
That.
And I'm not going to say it's not a disrespect thing.
No, it's a not thinking about it thing.
No. But they're like, "Oh, this is Angela. This is my friend. This is my colleague, whatever." So like the reverse of that, of owning, of being like, "No, I am Dr. So-and-so, or I am Ms. or Mr. So-and-so." Because you think like when you were a kid, would you ever have an adult introduced to you by their first name? No, I never did. Never. And even in the South, because I grew up in the South somewhat, every once in a while when I heard it's Ms. Daisy or Ms. Barbara, or I'm like, but that's Mrs. Peterson, you mean? It just it's that weird with me. So another way that I've overcome that is like making sure. And I don't want to correct them in front of the kids, but I definitely want to like pull them aside. I'm like, "Hi, I'm," and just like, "Oh yeah, cool. Hi, I'm Ms. McCuiston." I just like reaffirm that, but then pull them aside. "Hey, will you make sure to address me as so-and-so?" They're not thinking about it. It's not.
No, because you're so used to dealing with somebody on one level that you don't think about, like, you got to be a little more careful here. We need to make sure. And when you're dealing with children, in an education setting, and in my case for a while there, it was I was working with high school football players, boys, as a female coach who had just been introduced. I'm like, you need to call me doctor.
Yes.
And absolutely. It's not a like I wasn't mad. No. It's not a like holier than thou art. It's that there is a degree of respect that you get in a situation where you could be at a disadvantage, and like two places you don't want to lose control as an instructor. Number one, classroom full of small children. Number two, any setting where high school football boys are under your supervision.
Again, 100%.
They're great kids. High school boys. It's not like they're wild or anything. They're great kids, but
that age,
testosterone through the roof. They're very active, very physical. Chest bumping can quickly turn into fist fighting. Like, I need to own this situation. Give me as much mental power as you can. You know. So that's another thing. If you're getting out there and you're like, okay, I'm in college now, I'm gonna call up my high school band director and like, hey, can I come give your kids a clinic? And high school band director, and usually you don't even need to pull them aside and tell them, oh, hey, this is Jen. She'll be working with you today. Hi, I'm Dr. Kappas.
Right.
Done. And usually they're like, you're like,
that's what happened both times. I can't think about it. It's a good way to own that part of yourself where you might not feel so confident, because now you're no longer the student. You're no longer at this quote lower level. Now you are this person. You're owning this part of yourself, and it's okay. It doesn't have to do with ego. It's okay to just assert that. Yeah.
And if you think about it too, if you're feeling like, oh, I'm not quite there yet, I'm just young, great. You need more control of the situation then. You need it because you're young. and people will take advantage of you, whether or not they intend to. It's just that mental perspective. So it doesn't even need to be like, oh, I've earned this title, so I'm going to own it, which is eventually where you want to get to, right? We want to get to that point where it's like, I walk into a room of somebody who's like interested in taking clarinet lessons. I'm like, yeah, we're good. I'm not worried about, I don't need to convince you that I'm good at it. You'll know within an hour or two. You'll know. Like, and that's not cocky. It's just that I haven't really had anybody, at least clarinet student wise, that I haven't had that with. You know?
Yeah.
But if your goal is to get there, start by giving yourself power where you can, right?
Yeah.
Or
that comes back to your whole, how do you, what are the ways that you have overcome this yourself?
Sorry?
Can I also say, talk about it to people that you're scared about, because
yes.
you mentioned this in the book the other day. I'm like, I'm reading through it. It's an easy read. I could read it in one go, but I want to like digest it. And he mentioned thought like, you know, I've built this, I built that, whatever. And no, it wasn't him. It was Simon, or maybe it's both of them. Simon Sinek, the Power of Why, Start with Why guy. Anyway.
Okay.
He put out a video the other day. It could have been a year ago. I don't know. He put a video out recently. It showed up, and it was about being okay with being the idiot. And I went, whoa, okay. He said, look, I was in this room full of CEOs and people who knew all the things and whatnot. And this person is giving a presentation, and I was brought in to do X, Y, or Z, not all of that. But I had to understand what this person was saying for me to do X, Y, or Z. And this person is just talking way over my head. And I just went, I don't know what that means. Can you say what that means? I don't know. Can you explain? He just kept raising his hand and whatever. And then finally some other people were like, I don't know what that means either. And these are all CEOs. Like they're just pretending that they know. So when you start saying like, you don't understand and you don't know, and you're able to talk about that with other people in your same situation, more times than not, we're all putting on airs like we know what we're doing because we want to portray that confidence. But deep down, we're all going through, we all have doubts, and we're all trying to, like, there are all areas where we're not sure if we're doing it, quote, right.
Yeah.
Talk about it. Suddenly you own the situation. You're surrounded by other people who don't know what they're doing. We're all okay.
And that ties into a couple things too. Number one, you know, at the end of that, everybody in the room respected him because he wasn't afraid to be like, I need to know. And everybody's going to remember that guy. Yes. That guy asked the question. That guy is not afraid of anything. And in a room full of CEOs, you want somebody who's not afraid. Oh man, I'll tell you what.
You also feel okay to go talk to him about anything.
Because you know he's also honest. That's the next part. Honesty. People respect honesty. They really do. The second they find out you're lying, they're out the door.
Yes.
Don't ever say, like, there's a difference between, like, somebody asks, hey, somebody called me tomorrow and was like, hey, I need you to play this gig. It's mostly clarinet, but, you know, there's some bass flute in it. Can you do it? And the pay was good and whatever. I'm like, I would probably say, you know what? Let me make sure I can get my hands on a bass flute, but I'm pretty sure I can do it. Would it be that's different. Like, I've never played bass flute, in case you don't know. Like, that's not my deal. Barely proficient. Anyway, we'll leave that alone. So that's different because you're told when you're younger, always say you can do it. You can figure out how to do it. That I know I can figure out how to do. But that's different than somebody starting to talk to me about this bass flute piece and like talking all this technical jargon about bass flute and me nodding along like I understand and then accepting a gig in a way that is like, oh yeah, I'm experienced at bass flute and I can learn this solo, no problem. And like, I've done this before. It's different. Yes. In situation A, where it's like, let me make sure I can work on this. That's not lying. You know, that's just like straightforward. Let me make sure I can do this. And I'm pretty sure, but I didn't say, oh yeah, I have all experience. That'll be no problem. Situation 2, I'm lying to you. Then you find out about that. Are you going to call me back? I wouldn't. I don't trust that you're going to tell me whether or not you can play bass flute. Like, like, okay, so what if I need a piccolo player next?
I think ghosting is a sign of someone who lacks some integrity. That's another topic.
Yeah.
But
and
it comes down to, are you an imposter or are you not? Do you have integrity or do you not?
Yeah. Yeah. Even if you don't know, even if you're feeling like I'm an imposter, I shouldn't be here because you don't know something. If you're honest about it, number one, that helps you overcome imposter syndrome. Number two, chances are people around you are confused too. Number three, people respect your honesty. That's going to get you more legitimacy. And along those same lines, most of us go into this sort of field because we want to be an expert in it, you know? Like, you don't go into music or fitness thinking, oh, I'm just going to do this to get rich.
No, you do not.
No.
You go into it.
You go into it because you love it, you know, and you want to know more and you want to do more and you want to bring it to other people in whatever format that is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you're lying to yourself or other people about what you do or do not know, how are you going to reach the level of expert?
Right.
You're going to stagnate because you're too busy worrying about, do other people think you're an expert, instead of going, you know what? I have no clue what that means, but I want to.
Right.
So that was a really long ramble. I've been rambling a lot today, Angela. I'm sorry.
Not at all. Not at all. So, I mean, like, I'm feeling like I should just look through this and see if there's something I highlight. So, like, so, yeah, I'll go down the rabbit hole with like highlighting the things, like saying the things that I've highlighted in this book. But basically, if you have that little voice in the back of your head that says, you really are not worth this, you don't know what you're doing, what right do you have to blah, blah, whatever the thing is? For me, just to keep it real, for me, it's like, what right do I have to say I'm a fitness specialist, that I can help people prevent or overcome overuse injuries? And every time I have a failure, because I can't fix everybody, some things, and I have to take that off my website. Like, there's something on my website that says, come see me, I fix musicians. And I went, that's in my long-term range. Music Strong as a corporation can help fix musicians. I don't even like that term, but I mean, like, that's bold, and that says stuff that's outside my scope of practice, and that sets me up for failure. But when I first set out, that was my goal, so that's why it was there. And now I've learned, it's like, no, now I can take that back, because every time I'd have a failure, or I'd have someone, I mean, I would take it personally. Like, anytime there was someone who didn't like fitness that I was training, who came to me like, I have this issue, I want to fix it, can you help me? And I'd, you know, in our initial consult, I'd be like, yeah, we can do this, and we can do this, and you need this and this. And then I'll tell you this, I'll be real with you for a second. I do 3-month if you sign up with me for online training, I ask for a 3-month commitment. And the reason is, 3 months is about that baseline where you start to see real progress and real change. You're not going to see it in, you're not going to see it in a couple sessions. You're not going to see it in a month. Plus, it takes time to establish the habit and get used to doing, you know, understanding what you need. Plus, I need to know, if you're doing the workouts, I need to see how you work and how you do and what you need and progress. On one level, my brain goes, cool, I can take this model and I can progress. I can write them out a 3-month plan at the get-go. And usually what I do is I write someone out a 1-month plan right as we go. And then I'm already thinking of progressions we could do. But then I stop myself, because I'm like, I don't know how they're going to do this. I'm not there with them. And this is me being super vulnerable with y'all, because like, you're like, I want to hire you, you know, but I mean, for real, it's like, what if, like, I can't see you working out? What if this doesn't work? What if you get a twinge? What if this, what if that? And I don't know how to progress, or I do know how to progress, but it's not the same as you being there with me, and I'm watching you and I'm progressing you on the fly and writing it down, whatever. I'm just going off what you're telling me. And then we get to the end of the month and I haven't written out the second month. And I'm working on trying to figure out like, what's the best model for me to do that? And I'm coming to a better understanding of, yeah, go ahead and write that basic skeleton and then adjust as needed. So I'm not so stressed out. But because I like to tailor things, and this is where you know you're not an imposter.
Yeah.
It's because you want to tailor it to the individual so badly. You don't want to leave it to a cookie cutter program of, well, maybe this will work. But then if she says, no, it won't, solve it. I just want to wait. But then I'm not seeing you one-on-one. So that makes me feel like I don't really know what I'm doing. And when I have to update, I'm like, I don't know if I can help them. It's the worst feeling in the world because it's like, they came to me with this thing and I said I could help and I feel like I can. And now we're here and now where do we go? But it's all just because I'm not seeing you in person. And I haven't refined the process to the point where I'm like, oh yeah, we just do this, because it takes time.
Yeah.
And time is okay. It doesn't mean I don't know what I'm doing. It doesn't mean you're not going to get results. It doesn't mean any of that. It's just, it takes time, it takes experience, and it takes a process to learn what that system works best. And it doesn't mean that even if I have a system, I can't super tailor it to you, but it's going to take some time. But that time that it's taking makes me feel like a failure and an imposter. And I just want to be vulnerable about that.
Yeah. And honestly, I have the same issue. Even for my in-person people. Yeah. I cannot program more than a month out because I want to know, what are you feeling? How are you feeling about the workout? How are you feeling during the workout? Can you feel what I'm trying to get you to feel? And if not, or if there's pain, I need to know that. And we're going to swap some things. I mean, you bet your butt. Like, I give you a week worth of programming, and after day one, you're like, so this kind of made, my elbow feel twingy, or this kind.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
I am changing the rest of your week right now. You are not doing another workout that is not being changed. I can't program more than a month out for anything. And a month is hard for me because I'm like, I need feedback and I know it's going to change. And to kind of equate that to a private lesson setting, which maybe for musicians out there, so you kind of understand where we're coming from on this. When I was a brand new private teacher, I thought that I had to know.
He's being whiny.
I thought that I had to know exactly what I was going to do with my student before every single lesson. And I'd plan it out and I like, oh, we're going to do this book today. And we're going to do these scales and we're going to do this study. And like, okay. That stopped for me lesson 2.
Yeah.
I never did that again after lesson 2. Okay. And I feel like most private teachers are the same way. You can have a little bit of an idea. Almost all of it for me is right here. Almost all of it.
Framework. Like NASM, which is my certifying agency. Accreditation is college. A certifying agency. They give you all these beautiful templates, like this is how you lay out a year of programming for somebody. And I always have that in the back of my mind. So I'm like, okay, like if I'm working with someone one-on-one, it's like, okay, we're doing this. That's these rep ranges, these sets, these exercises.
Yeah.
But in one-on-one, you get that, you get that immediate feedback. Online, you're just like, and if you just make the check mark of I did it, like, well, what did you do? How many out of 1 of 3 sets of 10 to 15? What did you do? So it makes you second guess yourself.
Yep.
And, they're probably like, literally every time I've asked a client, can you give me feedback? And they're like, oh yeah, blah, 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 blah. They're not thinking anything ill of me, even though I'm second guessing everything I'm doing. Like, I'm a failure. Am I hurting this person? No, I'm not. And they're getting great results. They're just not telling me.
Yeah.
We tell your people the things, like if you're working with somebody, please give them constant feedback. More feedback is always better than less, because we're all dealing with this imposter syndrome of, am I doing the right thing? Am I really helping someone? Right?
Yeah. And I mean, we already talked about, I don't have that imposter syndrome with clarinet lessons at all. I just don't. But that same sort of thing where I know my students are going to do their scales. They're going to do their scales. We're going to get there. I don't always know how we're going to get there.
Yep. Likewise.
I know we're going to work on etudes. I don't always know which etudes. I don't always know. I have all that Rolodex, like idea from NASM of
The overview. Yeah.
that's not, anyway, we'll leave that alone. I think I said the wrong one.
That's right. You're right.
But you have that in your head of like, okay, this is how to progress it. But when the student's in front, like I said, I stopped planning my lessons after lesson 2 for clarinet private teaching. This was before 2010, maybe it was 2010. It was early, yeah, anyway. Because I needed to know on the fly, like, okay, this student, if I was just doing assignments, they should be on to the next set of scales. They should be on to the next form of scales. They're not there yet. They had a problem. I don't find out, and again, a lot of this is online, especially for personal trainers, but even in music lessons, it's once a week, you know? You don't find out till a week later. You don't find out until you see the student or till you get the feedback, and it's like, oh, so this approach doesn't work for how you learn.
Here's another thought I have about overcoming the imposter syndrome is ask.
Yes.
Ask for feedback. Ask for input. Like I mentioned, with the clients that I have, I've gotten used to like constantly, sometimes I get a little overboard in person, but online, I don't think I can ask too much because they might not see it. It might be a little wild. And they're like, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, like, this is twingy or whatever, you know, and they're just busy. Yeah. They're not logging in all the time. It's not, and it's nothing to do with me, or it's nothing to do with you collectively as a person. It's not to do with your self-worth. But if you don't ask, a lot of times the people that you're not going to get that feedback, and you're just going to go into that self-doubt, and the imposter is going to just rain down on you and just tell you all these things. Because until you kind of voice that in some way, like, hey, how does this work for you? Does, you know, whether you're asking a question of, I need feedback, I need input, I need clarification, any of those three, you're just going to be guessing. And it really can do a world of good, especially like I have one client I'm thinking of when I ask like, hey, how's this going? He goes, I haven't heard from you in a week. And he's like, oh yeah, so by the way, the app stopped working. I've been in touch with the app people, and apparently blah, 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 blah. I've been doing it, but I'm a night owl and blah, blah. And I'm like, did he fall off the wagon? No, he just was having trouble and he was dealing with it. So he didn't involve me, which was nice. Yeah. And then he's like, by the way, my wrists don't hurt anymore. And I'm like, okay.
There you go. Yeah.
What does the imposter tell you?
Yeah.
He's quit working out because he doesn't like it and you're failing him. Yep. And that's not always true.
Yeah. Questions solve 3 problems: self-doubt and imposter syndrome. It shows your student or clients that you actually do care. I mean, you think about it, you're investing in this person, you know. I had a student that I met up with just to catch up once, and she said to me as we're sitting there over coffee, she's like, I'm surprised you remembered me. I'm like, I remember all my students, all of them. You know? Like, I mean, I'm giving pieces of myself to you guys, you know, and same with my clients. Like, but it helps to let people know that you actually do care.
Yeah.
And it makes you a better instructor or coach. I taught a lesson today where we're working on articulation, that's tongue speed. And the beginning of the excerpt at every tempo sounded great, and the end is where it fell apart. That's normal. What my student heard was a reversal. I'm missing the articulations at the beginning, but it gets better as I go. I'm like, I needed to know that. If I know what you're hearing, I know how to instruct you on how to correct that. Right. I know how, because, you know, I'm guiding your ears in a music lesson as much as I'm guiding your abilities on clarinet. I'm guiding your physical kinesthetic sense in a personal training session. Like, do you feel your lats? Can you feel your, you know, as much as I'm helping you get stronger, you know, like, great, you can learn how to do different movements, but can you feel what you're doing? You know, same.
on a quick tangent, have I told you about my client, Jackie? But she's never going to hear this, so I can tell you. And she will be the first to agree with you. She only understands things if she feels pain. If she doesn't feel pain, she doesn't know. Like, can you feel that? I don't know. She'll literally tell me, I don't know. And she's got amazing ADD, and she's a pharmacist. So she will like, bing, 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 bing. Oh, that's because I have ADD. I told you that, right? Okay, bing, 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 bing. I love her because she's super smart and super aware and just super honest. Like she's just present
Yeah.
literally in that moment. How do you feel
Yeah.
that? I don't know. Let me think about it. We're doing this thing and she doesn't know unless she feels pain. So that,
Yeah.
sorry.
But again, it's that's we're learning languages and learning styles as we're doing this too. But it all goes back to all of it's learning.
Yeah.
And the imposter wants to keep you from learning. And the imposter is going to keep you from being successful. So start these. Oh my God, if you are a young instructor or a young coach or anything where you're getting started out, or even if you are older and just haven't done this before, start practicing like today. Start practicing getting rid of that voice. Because man, it makes a difference.
It does.
Like, a lot of my anxiety is gone because of it. Now I'm cranky because things are going poorly in the world right now, but my anxiety's gone.
Right. I know, right? I mean, so it's like, here's something that I have marked and I am going to read something. So, okay. This is something to consider. Risk takers and high achievers see the world differently than the average person and can struggle to build quality relationships as a result. How connected are you to similar people who share your goals as well as your challenges? Because how many times the imposter likes to keep us isolated, right? And think that we deal with it all by ourselves and we are just the issue in it. How connected are you with other people who are dealing with what you're dealing? And yes, we can say, okay, well, we're musicians, strength coaches. There's only a few of us. Okay. How many other musicians can you connect with that have similar issues? How many other strength coaches or fitness professionals can I connect with or you connect with? We can share that part. It doesn't have to be that niche.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that, what are our relationships like? Are we being isolated? Are you keeping yourself isolated?
Yeah.
And that's a big one right now because this as we're recording this is April 15th, 2021. We're just out of a year from the coronavirus pandemic starting. And we have been, quote, isolated. We've been by ourselves. Are you keeping yourself that way out of fear or something else? So, I mean, it's not like that's a lot to unpack, but I mean, that's something to think about.
Yeah. Yeah. For you gig workers out there, are you not looking for gigs right now because they're not really available, which is true, or because, well, the ones that are available, they're all taken by these people who already have the jobs and they're like, they've been established and I can't possibly break in right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not gonna say it's easy.
Is prime time.
Yeah.
This is the time to be on your game. This is setup time. This is time to be preparing for the shows that are going to happen, getting your resume ready if it matters. Your chops ready, your body ready. Yeah. The gigs and the shows are coming back. I mean, I'm here in Nashville and a friend of mine I just talked to today was like, dude, I've been playing nonstop. I have not had a day off in a month. And you're telling me people are still staying at home? Okay. But that's not everywhere anymore. So this is coming back. Yeah. So now is prime time. In fact, we're a little past it. So that's another topic.
Yeah. But, yeah. And it's going to get busy and it's going to get busy soon. So like if you've still got that little lingering doubt, take care of it now because people are about to get up and get going,
you don't want to be behind. You want to be prepared. You do not want to cram. Because then the imposter will come in like even more so like, see, you really don't know what you're doing. You really are as bad as you thought, blah, 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 right?
No, own yourself now. Own it,
So, speaking of which, I just found another highlighted spot. Sure, it's like super perfect because it says that procrastination is failure avoidance, right? So are you finding yourself like avoiding interactions where you feel vulnerable? Mm-hmm. Avoiding productive work, especially if you're not confident in your output, or avoiding the big dance. So like that great opportunity to get in front of an audience or to present to a whale of a prospect or like whatever that thing is. He's talking again, not musicians. But like, okay, so do any of those three hit home? I know for me they do because now it's like, okay, go time. Here we go. Yep. Oh, how many of us struggle with procrastination? And why do we struggle with procrastination? What are we trying to avoid? Are we trying to avoid success? Are we trying to avoid overwhelm? Are we trying to avoid failure? Are we trying, what is it? For me, it's like all of those.
Yeah, for me, it's a little bit of all of them too. And I'll tell you what, for a long time, and every time I put something off now, because it was such a big problem for such a long time for me. It was a major stumbling block. Every time I put myself off or put stuff off now, I ask myself, okay, are you putting this off? Are you not doing this thing because you are afraid that you will actually be successful at it and you don't think you deserve it?
Yeah. That whole fear of success is a valid thing. Ava called me out on that my first year of master's.
That's straight up imposter syndrome for me. Straight up, I don't think I deserve it because I'm not good enough. You know, Ava's good about that.
She's really good about that. She doesn't cut you, like, she does not pull punches. She will call you on your BS immediately.
No, Debbie Bish is good about it too. She's a lot more indirect, a lot more gentle. I appreciate both approaches, not gonna lie. I'm like, on the one hand, tell me things. On the other hand, if I'm not in a place to receive the hard punch, maybe lead me there instead. You know?
Listen, Ava did that. My very first couple lessons with her, she's like, okay, you are going to work out of this book. Every time you give me one of these A2s, it will be memorized. I don't care how long that takes you. It took me the entire first year to play her the first one, the whole first year, and she was cool with it. And so I now base my teaching off hers, because it's like, look, kids, you're college. I'm not here to tell you what to do every week. I'm going to give you a bunch of stuff. You're going to work on it. You're going to come back to me with questions. We're going to work on it as we go, which is how she structured it, which I love. And at the very end of that first year, she's like, Angela, it took you a whole year to be able to play that for me. I'm so proud of you. I'm like, that's not what, she's Swiss. Like, that is not what you would expect. She's like, mostly you would expect, why did that take you so long? You should have been through all like 24, you should have finished the book, right?
Yeah.
That was not her thing. She's like, you really owned that.
Yeah.
You know, like,
And there's like, so much value to that too, man. Like, and that's so, I mean, she told me at the very end of my 2 years, she's like, she told me, I don't remember exactly what it was, but she told me something, and she's like, I knew this about you in the very beginning, but you weren't ready to hear it. Like, how did you know that? She's like, oh, I just knew it. Like, cause she's really good about snowing about people, you know? So yeah. And that's a good instructor too, is one who can go, I know what you need to hear. I know what you need to not hear, but I need to lead you to it. And there's definitely that. Some people just need to hear it straight up. Most people, even if they think they just need to hear it straight up, I've found more need to be led to it.
Yeah. You need to know when is appropriate to tell that person. It's not always like when you know it, they don't know it. They might not be ready for it. Yeah.
And oftentimes you don't even end up needing to tell them. You just put them in positions that, in a very safe mental and emotional way, they can see what's wrong and they can work through it. And you're there to kind of support them and give them, okay, here's the next stepping stone when you're ready.
Right.
If we need to build a bridge to that stepping stone, we will. But
yeah. For true. So I think we've covered a lot of ground on this. I don't think we have, we have not like gone through the depths of this is how you defeat imposter syndrome, but
there's some tools in there. There's some pros, there's some, and I mean, if we really wanted to make the last little bit of things we just said really relevant to overcoming your own imposter syndrome, find somebody you trust that's a mentor who's going to do that for you.
Don't be afraid to ask. Ask for help. Ask for clarity. Ask for guidance.
And don't just pick an expert because they are an expert and they happen to be recommended to you by so-and-so, or their paperwork says this, that, or the other. When you're an undergrad going out for music school auditions, right? Most people apply to at least 4 or 5 minimum, sometimes more. And that tends to be true if you can afford it, depending on the audition situation, going into your master's and often your doctorate. I went and visited, I want to say 5 or 6 schools for my doctorate. I only applied to 2. And a couple people looked at me like I was weird. A number of people looked at me like I was weird. Like, you're only applying to 2, but what if you don't get in? It doesn't matter, because yes, the doctorate was important to me. The letters were important to me. The degree was important to me. But I knew after all those visits that I wasn't going to get what I needed from the other schools.
Bingo.
And it's not anything against them. At that point, it's nothing against them. They're great teachers, great reputations. I needed something else.
Right. It's not just about getting the letters after your name or in front of your name or the piece of paper. Because once you got the piece of paper, then what? The piece of paper doesn't mean anything. What matters is what you do with it and how you choose to use it.
And what you got out of that process.
Bingo.
Pick the mentor that's right for you. Same thing with personal trainers. You and I agree on just about everything, it seems like. You know, we've been doing this long enough.
It's been a year. I don't think we've disagreed on anything yet.
No, we have different approaches and different personalities. I don't like, not that we couldn't work with each other's clients and achieve success. But
I wish we lived closer. I'd love to do a client swap one day. It'd be fun.
Cross consult. Awesome.
We would learn a lot.
But I'm willing to bet that your long-term clients wouldn't respond as well to my coaching. And I'm willing to bet the other way around too. Totally. And just because what this person needs, what kind of personality this person needs, not insulting to either of us.
Nope.
So.
There's been a couple times in my career where I have had a person come in and they've ghosted me afterwards. Like, I had one person come in and she was super intimidated. She also came at 5:00 on a Monday. And like, if you're intimidated, now is not the time for you to be here. It was packed. And I'm like, I can't get rid of that for you. I never saw her again. And I tried to make it as like chill as possible, but it was like people were dropping weights and making noise. I'm like, this is not right for you right now in this environment. So there's that, you have to,
Side note, if you're intimidated by the gym and you're looking to start, weekend nights.
Or like 1 o'clock on any weekday is also good.
That
and
too.
If you find a trainer who will work on Sunday afternoons or something, that's a good time. Nobody's in the gym on Sunday afternoons.
No, I mean,
including me. I'm not there.
I work Friday nights, but that's a little different. And it's mostly usually my hardcore clients who are there.
Yeah, I do not work weekends, and I don't make apologies for it. It took a while to set those kind of boundaries, and I was just like, no, I am here Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and now I'm here Tuesday nights. Oh, you're not here on Thursdays, are you? No, I'm not. You know why? Because today's Thursday. Guess what I'm doing right now with you? I'm doing all my online clients, all my online things at home, and I really enjoy having some time at home.
Yeah.
And then but then you don't work weekends? No, because if I don't have any time off, how am I going to help you? And that's okay. That's not an ego thing, and that's not going being all anxious about the dollar. People respect those kind of boundaries. And that can also help you.
Yeah. And same thing with like, if you let people push you into something that you don't want to do, like working weekends, most likely it's because you think, oh, they're only with me because I'm available. And so if I'm not available, they're going to go find somebody else because I'm not good enough to just retain them on my own.
Yep.
Imposter syndrome. So musicians who are teaching on weekends and don't want to, looking at you.
Don't do it. Look, if you don't want to play a gig, say no. If you don't want to teach a client or a class or a student, say no. Because if you say yes and you do the thing or you teach the kid or you whatever, you're going to hate it. And you're going to end up in this cycle of dreading doing the thing that you're doing it week after week after. Now they know that you could be available at that time. No, just say no. People respect that. When I say I am not, okay, I said this last week. Actually, I will be available this Thursday because I have to I've got, what happened was I'm not usually available on Thursdays, but I had to travel to Alabama for an Army weekend and I needed to be there Friday night. I had one client that day. So I was like, you know what? I don't have to work till 6 o'clock and show up at midnight. I can just say, no, I'm not available. And I had one guy who needed to reschedule for Thursday. I went, hey, can anybody else come on Thursday? Poof, the Friday client moved to Thursday. Everybody was happy. I had the whole day off and I just got there when I needed to, which wasn't like a luxury. It was like, okay, I can get to bed at a decent hour. I can finish packing in the morning. I can make sure everything's taken care of.
Yeah.
It's not that you have to give all of yourself to everybody else first to be taken as a professional. No, people really respect you having those boundaries. Like, no, this is the one Thursday, but because of this, and they go, oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yep. And I know the second that I met the first musician who really told me no and really set that boundary for availability, which I came from a place where you ate, lived, breathed clarinet 24/7. You were expected there 24/7. And it was very much a family environment in a lot of ways. And I really loved it and missed it when it was gone. But I remember when I first came across that, oh, I can't get a response from you at this time. Oh, you're not here 24/7.
No.
And I just remember thinking, after all of that, loving the little family environment I'd come from, I remember thinking, I want to emulate this person. Like, I so desperately wanted to be like, no, I am not available at this time to do this work. I am sleeping, I am eating, I am taking care of my personal life that needs to get done because otherwise I won't be able to,
I am just not available and I don't have to tell you why.
No, nope, I'm not free. I'm not available at that time. I guarantee you, I guarantee you that 90% of the time, if you and I are saying we're not available, we're working on something else.
Probably, yeah.
It just
last night I quit at like 8 and I went, no, I haven't sat in front of my TV and watched something mindless in forever. This can wait till tomorrow.
Yep.
And then I had people texting me. I'm like, put the phone away. I don't see it. It didn't happen.
Nope.
Boundary.
Yep.
You make that for yourself. It's okay. You're not less of a person.
No.
You're not less of a professional.
Nope.
People think, okay, so do you know who Robert Jager is? That name sounds familiar. He wrote Goober Peas. He wrote, he was my theory AT professor back in bachelor's degree at Tennessee Tech. He wrote a bunch of stuff. Tempo de Bourgeois is what it's, Esprit de Corps. Sound familiar? The Windman piece?
Yeah.
He wrote Esprit de Corps. Okay, so everybody knows that one, right? So, which was fun because we actually had Colonel Bourgeois come and conduct us while Robert Jager was there. And he's like, so Bob is my friend and this is my tempo. What does that mean? It means what do I feel like today? Here we go. He just made it up. It's fun. Like seriously, every day was a little different. It was really funny. He's like, tempo de bourgeois is whatever he wants. So anyway, Mr. Jager was, I will never forget it, my freshman year. And like I said, I was blessed to have him for freshman oral training and music theory. Oral training, I'm amazing at. Music theory, I've sucked at my whole life. It's never going to get any better. It's akin to math. I've also sucked. It's fine. It doesn't matter. But he would come in and I'll never forget my freshman year. He's like, there is no such thing as a personal emergency. Or no, I'm sorry. There's no such thing as an educational emergency. I am not available after blah, blah, blah. These are my office hours. You can reach me here. You will not have my personal cell phone or my personal home phone because you don't need it. If you run out of ink, that is your problem. If you do this, that is your problem. This is not my concern. You will have the things done at the time, whatever, right? But I remember thinking, oh, I can't ask. This is like, he's making me take 100% personal responsibility for this. And it was fine. And I remember that to this day as being like somebody I want to emulate, be like, you know what? I do not have to. We didn't know when he wasn't at the music building. We knew that we were not allowed to call him at home unless it was a, I'm in the hospital emergency. I won't be in class tomorrow. You know, like that was it. There is no educational emergency. And just having somebody tell you that,
Yeah.
it really sets the precedent for, oh, I want to be that person. That's okay.
Yeah.
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 He could have known, who knows? I mean, he's a great composer, but if he had only learned the stuff the previous day he was going to teach us, we would still thought he was like way up here.
Yeah.
Talking about imposter syndrome, you don't know what the other person doesn't know or knows.
Exactly.
Yeah. So ask. Please be vulnerable and make those connections with other people. And we'll sit here and talk about this all day, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah. We probably need to wrap it up because I think we've covered most things twice.
I know, but it's so, yeah, I know.
Yeah, but it's a big deal. It's a big deal for most people, and certainly anybody in any of the fields that we cover.
Oh, and especially when it comes to having your degree. And I think this could be another thing, and I don't know if this falls under the imposter syndrome, but like when we started out talking about like, does my degree really qualify me or not qualify me if I don't have it to this or that, the other, you know, and how in the music world, we're told that unless you have X, you're not qualified, which I call bull on, because I've seen, as I've said, I've seen a lot of people who are really qualified have come to Nashville and see some of these friggin' musicians who do these things. They don't teach in music school, and they're far beyond qualified people who have X amount of pieces of paper and have no real life experience. And I'm not saying anything against people with doctorates or masters or college education, whatever. But one, just having a college education does not mean you are qualified. It means you've learned these things.
And it also doesn't mean you're stuck in only the thing that the piece of paper says. You are not stuck in only the thing the piece of paper says.
Yes. Yes.
You're not.
Please do not equate the two. College education in music is a tool you can use for however you want to use it. And we need to get rid of thinking like you're only qualified if you have blah, 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 blah. Tell that to Victor Wooten, you know? I don't know if he has a college degree or not, but the man has done some amazing things, and tell him he couldn't teach a course on something like improv on bass. Yeah, you get your head out of your hind end. That's totally not true. I mean, the man can do amazing things. So, I mean, it's one of those things like, you know, a piece of paper is a piece of paper. Experience is experience. There's a whole realm in there.
Yeah, there's some overlap. They're not exclusive, and it's certainly not a means of impostoring yourself for either having or not having the paper.
Right. Go get whatever education you feel you need to do what it is you want to do. That's what's important.
There we go.
Boom.
Good stopping point.
It was good. This is good. This was a good conversation. I'm glad we made it.
Yeah, this was a good one. I think it was a good one. But you guys let us know what you thought in the comments. Drop a question.
Hit the subscribe button.
Yeah. Drop a question, subscribe, enter feedback. If you have something that we didn't mention that you want to share about imposter syndrome or overcoming it, share it, because I guarantee you somebody else reading the comments wants to know that.
Let me put this out there real quick. Yesterday or a couple days ago, I put out a post that got way more engagement than I ever thought possible. I got a ton of likes, and I started messaging people who liked the post. And I said, what resonated with you? And I got these long posts. I'm like, why didn't you post that? Other people would have said the same thing. I got this over and over and over again. Like, don't be afraid to share this, guys. The narrative starts when we narrate. We have to share. So it can't just be us talking. Wait, nobody's going to think less of you for saying you had an injury or you have experienced imposter syndrome. We all do. And the minute you do, you are not, quote, like Simon Sinek says, you're not afraid to be the idiot. You start that discussion, suddenly we change the entire narrative in the musician world.
Yes.
It's right here, right now.
Absolutely. Cool. All right. If you have any questions or if you are interested in any of our services, you can find us on our respective socials and websites. Mine, again, I'm Dr. Jen Kavis. You can find me tunedandtonedperformance.com. That's tuned with a D and toned with a D. Same goes for Instagram and Facebook at Tuned and Tone Performance. And if you're really interested in my lifts, you can follow me personally on Instagram, which is at Doc Beefcake.
I love it. So, you can find me at all the places in the show notes, and it's everything Music Strong or Music Strong Fitness. But my thing that I want to promote is my new group coaching program, and I don't care what part of the year or years past you've seen this is going to keep going at some form or fashion. So if you want more information, please drop me a line at angela@musicstrong.com. And check out the different things I have to offer. I have all kinds of things, but really the most important thing is that we want to hear from you. Yes. We want you to engage with us on all our social media platforms and down here in YouTube, if this is where you're finding us, or if you are on any kind of audio, please leave us a review, because those reviews help us reach more people. So hit the subscribe, share with a friend, and hit that review button. A 5-star would be great. And
if it's not a 5-star, tell us what you didn't like about it so that we can maybe address it.
Oh, bingo. Perfect.
All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. I'm sure we will catch you next time.
All right. Thank you.